Hi, welcome to the Right Room with Hilary Phelps. Today, I'm so excited to have Camille Herron, ultramarathoner, badass extraordinaire. Camille details a lot of vulnerable moments in her life and also a big transition. For the first time, she talks about her bullying, suicidal thoughts, and then being diagnosed at 42 with autism and ADHD. I hope you enjoy listening to this episode as much as I enjoyed talking with Camille. Hi, Camille. How are you?
I'm great. Yeah, thanks for having me on, Hillary. I'm really grateful for you and that we've connected and that we finally get to have a really special chat, I believe.
I know. I'm so excited for this. Welcome to the Right Room. And I have been looking forward to this chat too. I think we've been following each other in social media for a while. And we're going to go through a little journey. You and I were talking a little bit about before we started, and then also decided we should hit record because again, we'd have the whole conversation and we were having these great sound bites and just this really beautiful conversation. But, the Right Room is a place for women. I wanted to launch this podcast and host this podcast for a place for women to share their stories really vulnerably and real, and in a conversational way so that, women that maybe are struggling in silence can keep going, that can heal. And, maybe they hear something in your story that resonates with them. And so this is a platform for women just to be seen and heard and share.
Awesome.
And so
Thank you.
you're welcome. So I want to start out something in March of 2024. I mean, tell us a little bit about who is Camille for anybody that is tuning in, that's just hearing about you for the first time. Who is Camille?
Who is Camille? Yeah. Yeah, I would say I'm best known for being an ultra runner extraordinaire, which ultra running is running beyond the marathon. So I go and run 50 miles, 100 miles, 200 miles, 500 plus miles. I run really, really far.
Gosh.
I've set, I think it's like 45 world records so far. So, yeah, I'm like a living like Wonder Woman.
Yes, you are. And I love that. And I love that you called yourself that. And it's, and it was new. I mean, you kind of just started this, right? Less than 10 years ago, this ultra marathoning path. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was a marathoner for about 10 years and did all the short road racing. I was track, cross country, ran road racing up to the marathon. I made 3 Olympic marathon trials, and I had a full-time profession in bone research, and my specialty was bone imaging. And so in my mid 30s, I had already made 3 Olympic marathon trials. I've won 21 marathons. I'd already done a lot. I had made a U.S. team for the Pan American Games. So I had already done a lot in my running career, and several people, most notably, I went and ran the New York City Marathon back in 2011, and the elite coordinator started talking to me about trying ultra running, which is going beyond the marathon.
Yeah.
So I'm in my mid 30s. I'm a full-time professional in bone research. I figured, well, why not?
Why not?
Why not?
I
Yeah.
love that. It's funny because I'm 46. I turned 45. On my 45th birthday, I decided I looked up to you and I was like, you know what? I'm going to run an ultra marathon. I've run one marathon in my life, although it was at the end of an Ironman. No,
That's awesome.
because why not? I was
Amazing.
like, I'm going to do it. And I got into the training and I got up to 6 miles and I was like, I don't think I'm going to do this ultra marathoning thing. Because I know like women excel later in life and it's, we have endurance and this stuff. And so I was really, but my ultra marathoning days were over before
Well,
they began.
you're still young. I mean, I go run these ultras, and there's women out there over the age of 70. So
I know, maybe.
yeah.
So there's still hope
Maybe.
for maybe. But
Totally.
I want to go back to March of 2024 because in March of 2024, Lululemon had a race further. And the goal, right, if I'm right, is to run further than you've ever run before. Yeah?
Yeah.
And in those 6 days, it says she broke records like a broken record. I love this. You broke the 300-mile, 400-mile, 500-mile world record, 500K, 600K, 700K, 800K, 900K world record, and the 3-day, 4-day, 5-day, and 6-day world record. Does this mean you ran for 6 days straight?
Yep. Yeah. 6 days. So 144 hours. And yeah, it was kind of like Groundhog Day.
Can you walk us through that? What did you do for 6? I mean, other than run, like what? Because Camille, like my partner tells me, he's like, you get a little salty if I don't get like 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night. Like, so what were you like at the end of 6 days? Talk us through that, because that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, I've kind of equated it to like finals week in college. I mean, in college, I used to like, like finals week, I would get minimal sleep and take test after test, for a week, and so I kind of went into the race thinking, oh, this is going to be like finals week in college. Like I could do that.
Except I'm running the whole time.
Except I'm running. Yeah. Yeah. So and I feel like that's kind of how I've always broken things down in life. Like, one of my favorite sayings is, how do you eat the elephant? You eat the elephant one bite at a time. And so I've always equated, these big audacious goals that I do to, some sort of like saying or some sort of experience from my life. Like, oh, I could do that. I've done that before. I used to, play video games like all night when I was a kid until like 2 or 3 in the morning, and then sleep in the morning, and then I go play basketball in the afternoon. So I feel like it's always been wired in me to be able to hyper focus and get into my headspace. And, I set a goal and I go after it, and nothing is going to stop me. And that was kind of my mindset going into the 6-day race was, I had to break down, how am I going to eat the elephant? So I took it like one day at a time. We broke down every day into like 4-hour segments where I was stopping every 4 hours to eat and drink and kind of fuel up my battery. And I had, I didn't sleep very much, but I slept whenever I got tired. I slept. When I had to go to the restroom, I went to the restroom. So it was a bit like Forrest Gump as well. I mean, it was kind of, it's like, yeah, it's just super, super hyper focused. But I found a way to break down eating the elephant a day at a time, 4 hours at a time. And, just time kind of passed. And it was kind of like Groundhog Day a bit, where every day the sun would rise, and it felt like this, I felt like I was kind of in this like mini world at the further event. So yeah, it was weird to have gotten to the finish and be like, what day is it?
Where am I?
Where am I? Like, what's going on? Like, I felt, yeah, it was just really weird to get to the finish, and then to have to immerse myself back to the real world. It was like, what is this?
What is going on? Yeah, because that's such an accomplishment. And I mean, my only experience is the Ironman. That was 14 hours. And I remember after that kind of being jittery and like not being able to sit down because your body's just, it wants to keep going.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. And so 6 days, I imagine, what was that like to come down from that after moving for so long?
It was super weird. I like going home. So one of the things that I was daydreaming about during the race was I really like to sit on our back porch and listen to the birds. And I have like my Merlin app that that IDs birds and like their sound and everything. So
Yeah.
during the race, I'm like imagining, oh, I can't wait to be like sitting on my porch, listening to the birds. Like it was kind of a way to like meditate in my head, to like
Yeah.
imagine that I'm on my porch listening to birds. So when I actually like was done with the race and I'm at home, I'm on my porch listening to birds, like it was so like weird. And I felt like it took me weeks to
Yeah.
get to where I would be waking up, during the day thinking, oh, I'm supposed to go run, let's go run some more miles, and I'd be like, oh wait, I'm not a further, I don't have to collect my
This is not.
urine. I don't have to like have somebody drawing blood for me. Like it was just weird. Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot probably to come down from that. And something, did you know this? Have you heard this? That the sound of birds brings down your cortisol? It's a de-stressor.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. Yeah, I
I'll
was
have to
just naturally doing that.
I'll have to find the stat and I'll send it to you. But it was talking about, yeah, bird sounds. You can listen to bird sounds. And it's something I recommended to one of the women I work with because she doesn't like flying. And I was like, oh, if you listen to bird sounds when you get on the plane, it's supposed to bring your stress level down.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, and I've had people ask me, like, "Do you listen to music? Like,
Yeah.
what is going through my head?" I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, 6 days is a long time to, to have thoughts going through your head.
Yeah.
For me, because I have a special brain, which we haven't talked
You're
about
going to get
yet,
it. Yeah.
I have a picture. I have a picture and hearing memory. So, like, my whole entire life, I feel like I can like remember things going back to the age of 2, what I
Wow.
saw, what my thoughts were, and those are the things that I think about. So it's like I don't even need to listen to music when I race because I literally can hear the music in my head. I can imagine where I was watching something, listening to something. It's all like in my head. And so I feel like I have like a movie scenes going through my head when I race, and I didn't realize that that's not normal. Not everybody can
We're
do
gonna get to
that.
that. Yeah, I'm so fascinated to talk more about that. But I want to take you back because you have so many. I mean, it would take the entire hour. I feel like to read all of your accomplishments and accolades and things that you've done, both professionally in health and study at the University of Michigan.
I've worked professionally in bone research at
Yeah.
several places. I went to grad school at Oregon State. I worked at Purdue. I worked at University of Oklahoma Health Science Center. I went to Michigan for a couple months, and then I came back to University of Oklahoma Health Science Center. So yeah, I've been retired. I say I'm retired
Yeah. Yeah.
from bone research for about let's see, what is it, 5 years now? So yeah.
And that was something that was a big part of your life before kind of fully transitioning into ultra running. And you have all of these incredible accolades, right? So on the outside, anybody looking at you'd think, oh, she's got it all together. She's got this incredible life and she must be so happy. But in 2016, you were a victim of bullying. And you talk about how that was impactful in your life and really hard. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I committed to ultra running in 2015. And during my first year, I won 2 world titles, 2
Wow.
national titles, and I set the 50-mile world best. And so I'm on top of the
Amazing.
like,
Yeah.
and I'm in my mid-30s doing this. I'm a full-time professional. I'm doing
Yeah.
ultra running for fun, just for just pure enjoyment. Like I've already done a lot in my running career, so I'm on top of the world. I'm like, I just can't believe it, like
Yeah.
I thought, being successful, everybody's going to embrace me. Everybody's going to be like, hey, you're amazing. Like, keep going. Like, doesn't that
Yeah.
seem like the normal thing to do?
Yeah. You're doing great things. Let's celebrate you.
Let's celebrate
Right?
you.
Yeah.
And so getting into the sport, I was pretty overwhelmed at the time because I didn't know anything about the sport, and I'm having all the success. I'm just naturally having all of the success. and didn't know what to do next. And so I ended up getting an agent
Yeah.
back in 2015 because I felt like, especially as a woman, that I needed to have somebody to represent me to, whatever sponsorships or media and like all that. I just needed
Yeah.
somebody to help me.
To kind of navigate this new world for you, right? Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, like the year after in 2016, it was just really shocking the way that I was treated, not only by my agent that I had starting out in my career, but just a lot of esteemed people in the sport. I just felt like I was constantly being told nobody cares, nobody cares what you're doing, because I primarily compete in the sport of ultra running, which is different from trail running. And so in the U.S., trail running, ultra trail is kind of the hyped up sport that sponsors and people really focus on, whereas ultra running is more of a global, international sport, and so it doesn't get as much hype and as visibility.
Okay.
And so I'm competing in this amazing sport of ultra running. I'm doing all these amazing things, and I think because I came into the sport and had so much success so quickly, and there's other people in the sport that have been doing it for a while, and so there's just jealousy. There's a lot of jealousy. I'm also, being a female, I'm competing in a male-dominated sport. And
And beating
so
men, I
I'm
must
beating
add.
men. I'm beating men. I'm beating men's records. I'm competing in a
Yes.
male-dominated sport.
Yeah.
So a lot of the bullying and the hate that I was experiencing was from men. And yes, I didn't understand all of this until one of my friends told me. She's like, "Oh, you're a tall poppy. You're
What is a tall poppy?
So a tall poppy. So if you have a bunch of poppies, they're growing together, and you have one that stands out, the other
Oh,
poppies try to cut down the tall poppy.
I've never heard this, but I love that.
So I'm a tall poppy, and not only am I a tall poppy, but I'm actually tall. So
Yeah. You're a tall poppy with a Wonder Woman cape.
exactly. Yeah. So anybody that's a tall poppy is a standout human, and it usually is a woman. So any woman that excels, in life, in sports, anything, that it makes us a target to be cut down to the level of the other poppies. So yeah, when my friend explained this to me, it like made like, oh yeah, like that totally makes sense to me. But yeah, so all this was happening in 2016, and I'm also dealing with the stress of trying to juggle my full-time day job
Right.
with my like flourishing ultra running career that I was
Yeah.
not expecting to happen. So I'm under a tremendous amount of stress between what I was dealing with professionally, my day job, my running career, sponsors, like what the heck do I do with all this, and then just the constant bullying that I was not expecting. And so my husband, Connor, at that time, he was working full time and he had a day job, and so he wasn't managing my ultra running career at that point. But I remember there's one day in February
Yeah.
where I got back from a run and I was crying. And I'm not somebody that like outwardly like complains very easily. I kind of like hold my emotions in quite a bit. And so for my husband to see me crying, he's like, "Well, what's going on?" He didn't realize what I was experiencing. And so, yeah, I mean, I was just obviously under a lot of stress with everything that was happening. It just was overwhelming me like
Yeah.
extremely. And so my husband ended up having a talk with my boss for my day job at that time. He's like, "Hey, she's really like struggling right now. She needs help, or she needs you to like be more supportive." Yeah, I mean, my boss was amazing. I got to give credit to my boss,
Yeah.
but I mean, I'm just, like I said, I'm not somebody that that really expresses my emotions that much. I'm usually a happy person. So for me to be crying is like, oh my gosh, like something's really, really wrong. So anyway, so then the next couple months, I just wasn't sleeping well. I was breaking down. I ended up getting a really bad hamstring injury, and I tried trail running, and I had a really bad hamstring injury going into this race, and I was kind of pressured to do this race because it was a qualifier to get into Western States 100 miler.
When you say pressured, externally pressured, or was that an inner?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was both.
Okay.
I was pressured to do this race because it was a qualifier to get into Western States,
Okay.
and so I had one of my sponsors. I was going to be part of a team that was competing, and I had injured my hamstring a few weeks before it. But I felt pressured to do it because it was a qualifier for Western States, and so I ended up doing this race, and I limped very heroically to the finish line. I ended up finishing fourth, and I think there was I think that may be wrong. I may have finished third. I don't remember what I finished, but I missed out on qualifying for Western States in my first trail race. And I had a very, very bad hamstring injury. Yeah. And so after that, I was very badly bullied for the months after that. Like people being like, oh, she can't run trails. She's not going to be any good at this. She's can't run uphill. Like all this internet trolls, like everybody came out just piling on, just all this hate.
Can we talk about that for a second? Because
Sure.
I have not had it to that level, and my brother's had it, and so I understand. And so what I see, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is like people get behind that computer and they think you're not human, or you don't read these things, or it won't bother you. And it is like this faceless outlet to say whatever they want. But if they're in front of you, 9 times out of 10, they would never say it to your face, right? And so it's this really cowardly act of keyboard warriors just throwing hatred out. But can you share what that did to you, like what that did to your mental health, what that did to your that inner, that resilience that got you into the race, that said, I'm going to push ahead and I'm going to keep going? Like, what did that do to the inside of you?
Yeah. Well, I felt like at that time, like, especially, I mean, this is 2016. So I felt like women didn't have as much of a voice, that we're supposed to give this like portrayal that we have it all together, that we're perfect, that we're happy all the time. So I couldn't.
Don't complain. Don't look, you just keep saying yes and showing up, and every iteration of your life is the perfect yes. Don't.
Yeah.
We're going to get into that too. Yeah.
You're supposed to fit a cookie cutter mold, and
that someone else puts out there for you. Society, culture, family, institutions, right? It's not even, yes. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's okay. You totally get it. But yeah, I mean, this is 2016, so women didn't have a voice. Women couldn't be vulnerable. Women couldn't complain. Like, even if we complain, they're like, oh, she's complaining. She's making excuses. Yes. I couldn't get real and be like, oh, I've got an injury. Like, I did the best I could. Everybody be like, oh, she's making excuses. Like, she just got her butt beat. Like whatever. And so yeah, I mean, this is my first trail race. So it's not like people are being like, hey, we're so proud of you. Congratulations, you finished your first race. It's like, no, she sucks. She's not good at trail running. Like, it was just so negative and mean. And everybody, I me like, oh, the trail running community is so welcoming. Everybody's so, lifts each other up. Like, I was expecting like, oh, everybody's going to be so kind and, really like, appreciative. And so, yeah, I mean, I literally from the start, I felt like I had no community. I felt like I had no support. And I got this agent to help
Mhm.
me, have to develop a community around me. And I was also told by sponsors that I was turned down by sponsors. And people are like, "Oh, you're too old." I'm like, at that
In your
time,
mid-30s.
I'm like 33, 34.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I'm in a male-dominated sport, so they're looking for a 25-year-old male that, to be the hero of the sport. And at this point, I had already won 2 world titles. I had set the 50-mile world. Like, I was very obviously talented. Wouldn't you think somebody would want to, like, embrace me? And
Yes.
but I was told at that time, like, "Oh, you're too old, or you're too arrogant. People think you're cocky. You're making other people feel uncomfortable." I grew up as a basketball player. I grew up with swagger. Like, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna kick your butt, and I'm not afraid to say that. So,
Okay, I'm gonna jump in here and say, you just brought up basketball players. There are a lot of arrogant male athletes that make a lot of money on their arrogance, and they're telling you that you came into the sport and you're too much or too this to be considered one of the women that they work with.
exactly.
That seems mind-blowing,
It's pretty mind blowing.
right? Because women were told we're too much, we're too little, we're this, we're that, but you're supposed to be perfect, have your stuff together, and so how does that feel to be told that you're too much and not enough in the same sentence to work with these companies after you've just done these incredibly huge athletic performances?
Yeah, I felt like I couldn't shine my light.
Yeah.
Like, I want to shine my light, and I'm told I'm too much. I'm either too much or I'm not enough.
Yeah. You
Like,
can't
women are either
win.
too much or like.
You can't win. And so this leads up to 2020 where you were really then struggling. Does this go on for 4 years?
Yeah.
Is this something that you would just deal with on a daily, monthly basis?
So 2016 was, I'm kind of talking,
Yeah.
as I get into trail running. I mean, it like my life between 2016 2020 it could be a movie. Even just
Mm.
like 2016 to 2017.
How so?
So I so in July of 2016 is when I finally realized I'm having suicidal thoughts.
Mhm.
And I mean, this is the first time I'm ever publicly saying that, but I realized I was so broken down
Yeah.
and sleep deprived, stressed, tired, bullied. And at that time, I had accepted a full time, um, a dream job up at the University of Michigan. I was working a dream job at Michigan in bone research, and
Mhm.
I was living apart from my husband. And
Mhm.
so I'm trying to live on my own, and my husband didn't realize like how bad of a state that I was in, until I just realized one day I'm having suicidal thoughts, and like, that's not me, that's not normal. And so that was kind of the light bulb moment of, oh my gosh, what's going on? Why am I? It almost felt like my brain, like I couldn't control my brain. And so when that started to happen, and I realized, okay, I'm in a really bad state, I need
Mhm.
Connor to help me. I ended up firing my agent at that time. I quit my full-time job at University of Michigan. Connor quit his job, and we realized that we needed to get back to Oklahoma. I needed to get back into a supportive
Yeah.
environment again. So I ended up going back to my job that I had at the University of Oklahoma. And I ended up negotiating that I was able to have part-time hours for full-time pay, which
Good for you.
was really awesome.
Yeah.
And then I ended up getting a new agent,
Okay.
and my new agent ended up going to bat for me, and he's the one that I got turned down multiple times by Nike. And at that time, it was right after the Olympics in 2016. So Nike is at that point where they finish the Olympic cycle. they're at the point where they're probably going to cut athletes. They're not adding athletes. So I got turned down by Nike many times. And I went for a run one day in like October and told, I had gotten rejected by Nike for, I don't know, the third, fourth time. And I got back from my run and I'm crying. And I wrote this like impassioned email to my agent. And it was so cool because he's like, hey, can I forward this on to John Capriati at Nike? And he did. And John said, I like her. Let's give her a chance. And so I ended up, that's how I got my first contract with Nike, was because John thought I had moxie, and he said, hey, we're going to give her a chance. And so I got my first contract with Nike.
I love this. And what I hear from this is, one, the power just of intuition. Like you didn't give up. Two, you were real. You were honest. And you were like, this is what I want. And having somebody great to support you, like a community or your agent. And I know your partner, your husband, Connor, has been your rock for a lot of your journey. And, but I love that, right? Like not giving up, you continuously show up and go after for what you want. And I love that Nike saw that and came through.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, this is like a short time span of months of going from being so badly bullied to the point where I'm having suicidal thoughts, my mental health, I quit my job. Just all these things like happened. I got rejected by Nike. I said, I refuse. I will have to send you the email because it's actually really great. It will go into a book for sure someday. But I basically said, I refuse to accept no from Nike. I said that.
That's amazing.
And I said that not knowing that my agent was going to forward that to John. And John liked that. Like, he's like, hey, she just told Nike off.
Yeah.
And I did, yeah, it was just like my moxie to be like, hey, you need to, like, I knew that I'm somebody that you should bet on. I'm somebody special. I have to be with the best company. And I said that, and, Nike saw that. And so Nike gave me a chance, and, I'm grateful for that. I'm definitely grateful that happened. And, yeah, it's an amazing life, but
I love that moxie.
That's what my husband says. He says, you've got moxie. The months after are just like mind blowing. I mean, I had my first contract with Nike. I ended up going into 2017 and started having success finally in trail running. I finished second in one race, qualified for Western States. I went to New Zealand. I won a major trail race over in New Zealand. And then I went to go do a trail race in mid-March. And I tore my MCL in the race. It poured rain and I slipped. Wow. And my leg went one way and my knee went the other. And my knee just... and this is like months. This is like, 10 weeks? It was 10 weeks before the Comrades Marathon. And so Comrades Marathon's the biggest, most competitive, most lucrative ultra in the world. And I tore my MCL 10 weeks out. So I'm really badly injured, but I'm determined. I'm like, well, maybe there's a possibility I could do this.
Maybe.
And so I'm working my PT. I'm trying to, rehab my knee. And then my husband, Connor, had a dream that I won Comrades. And he described this dream to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, like maybe I'm supposed to like go on this journey to run Comrades. And so sure enough, I believed in this dream that it was my destiny to go to Comrades to win the race. And I'm telling you, it was like the hardest buildup I've ever had because my knee was definitely not 100%, but it was kind of like Joan of Arc. It was kind of like,
yeah, yes.
It was like Joan of Arc. I'm supposed to do that. I'm supposed to rehab my knee. I'm supposed to go to Comrades. I'm going to win this race. And sure enough, I did. I did win Comrades. so this is 2017. So you think about what I went through in 2016 and then going into 2017 and the journey I went on in those two and a half months leading up to Comrades. I mean, it just doesn't seem real. Like I can't believe all that happened.
Yeah, and talk about the power of the mind too. Right? Like you were determined, you're like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. And so, right, the body achieves what the mind believes. I mean, as athletes, we know like any kind of, if you start thinking negatively, it's not going to work out or this isn't, but that's a great lesson to translate into life, right? Like anything I put my mind to, I know I'm going to do.
Exactly. It was a Joan of Arc moment. I just felt like it was destiny that I was supposed to do this. I was supposed to overcome my knee and go to Comrades and win the race. And there was never a doubt in my mind that that is what was supposed to happen. So even like watching the video of Comrades, I literally look like I'm on a mission. Like I'm so focused during the race that, and my body parts flow and I just don't look like everybody's like, how is she running like that? Like she doesn't look like a normal runner. So everybody's like doubting me during the race. And in my mind, it was my destiny to win that race.
And you did.
I did.
Oh my gosh. You said in 2020. So all these things were, is the bullying and then this really exciting moment of winning this with the torn MCL. Like,
yeah.
Which is painful. And then you said you kind of jumped to 2020 when you started having these suicidal thoughts. What got you from the point of the thought to the action, right? Because meaning asking for help, not taking the action of following through with the thought. But, right. And I love this trajectory, like the description of this is a really high and then a really low, and then how people are impacting you and how you're using your mind to overcome and have these great things come. But then you have this really challenging time period in your life where this seems like a good idea or this is something that pops into your mind. Can you walk us through how you got from that to asking for help?
Yeah. So I like you said, I was on many highs and lows between about 2016 to 2020. And during that time, I had occasional thoughts of suicide, and it's hard for me to even like now I'm in a place where my mental health is good and I'm well. But I can see back then, that there were a lot of things with stress or hormonal changes, and just not understanding what's going on. Like, how does that happen? Like, how does your brain get to a state where that happens? But now that I'm at a state where I am mentally well. But it wasn't until a year and a half ago when I joined with Lululemon that they started, that they told us health and wellness is number one, and that they support us in being able to seek out resources to help our mental health. And so,
Awesome.
So between the support from them and then also my dietitian, Jackie, who had recommended a mental health professional to work with. So I felt like I had, I finally had I didn't know who to go to and how to support my mental health. But I felt like the support of Lululemon and my dietitian were the ones that made me be like, okay, I really need to work on my mental health because I've had these struggles that I dealt with for this period. And I can see, okay, I need to finally start working on this. Like, how do I continue to level up in my 40s? And so the past year and a half, I've worked on my mental health, and it's just blown my mind and opened me up to this whole other world of self exploration that, I mean, it's just unreal.
And I love what you're saying too, because right, we say it takes community, and in the right room, like the name the right room came from. It wasn't that I was wrong or my voice was wrong. It's just that I was in the wrong room. That metaphorical wrong room, surrounded by people that don't believe in you, that take advantage, that bully, or all those things. But when you're in the right room, like you described, and you have a team of people, right, mental health, sponsors that support you, a great agent, a great partner, people that lift you up rather than trying to tear you down. I mean, yes, I love that hands lifting up. The power of having a really strong, wonderful community, especially as a woman, is so important. And now I want to fast forward a little bit to this most recent transition in your life, which was, you say, and I want you to talk to this, really then kind of explains a lot of things and gave you some solace and grounding. But at 42, you were diagnosed with autism and ADHD. Can you describe what that felt like when you got kind of that diagnosis? What was that like for you to hear those words? Because that's a huge thing. We're into life at this point.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of one of those things where, like, I feel like my husband and I have gone for many years of being like, "Oh, we think you're autistic. You're probably autistic." Like, we've kind of, like, jokingly said, "Oh, you're autistic," not knowing what autism
Yeah.
really is. And most people like myself probably don't know what autism is, and, I guess you could say my perception of autism was maybe like the Dustin Hoffman's character in Rain Man.
Yeah.
It's a man, it's a boy, somebody that has like savant like skills, but isn't really communicative, and so yeah, I didn't really know what autism is. I just always thought, like, oh well, I've gone through life. I've learned how to like cope with life.
Mhm.
It doesn't really matter at this point whether I am autistic or not. But it was finally the further 6-day race in March that made me realize, okay, I am different. I'm a different bird.
After running for 6 days, you had a clarifying moment. You're like, we should all run for 6 days and have these moments. So what was that moment? I mean, what was that like? I'm different.
Yeah, there were so many things. I mean, first off, like, there's so many people there, and there's so much noise, so much
Yeah.
hoopla. And I was feeling like I did as a girl, like the sense of like overwhelm that I
Mm.
used to get as a girl. Like I was really shy as a girl, and I didn't talk. I was nonverbal.
Okay.
And I had to take speech therapy until I was 9 to learn how to talk.
Mhm.
And there's been so many moments, like even just the past year, I started opening up about how I was diagnosed as a child with this central auditory processing disorder, how I didn't talk, how I was always in my head space as a girl, and I was really shy, and I didn't like being around people. I was really uncomfortable. And so my mom put me in sports and dance, and I think I mentioned to you about taking swimming
Yeah.
lessons and finally overcoming my fear with that. I did music. So my mom tried to put me into these activities because I was like a turtle, and I needed to learn how to come out of my shell and to deal with people in the real world and all this. So when I was running the further 6-day race, I started to feel the way I did as a girl, of that sense of like overwhelm with all the people, all the noise, all the light. It was just, I feel like I've gone through life like learning how to cope with it by like getting into my headspace, putting on the blinders like a horse, and trying to block it all out. And during the 6-day race, I felt like it got to be so overwhelming that it started to internally impact me to an extreme level where
Wow.
I started like losing control, developed incontinence with my bladder, with my bowels. I was just in this like almost like it was almost like a near death, like traumatizing experience of I'm dying during the race,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to figure out how to survive. And I mentioned how I'm not somebody that like outwardly expresses like pain, fatigue, my emotions
Yeah.
until I'm like in a really bad state. And so my crew started to recognize, okay, we need to help her.
Yeah.
Like she's in a bad state. And so the medical team ended up, they said, well, we think she has a urinary tract infection. We're going to put her on an antibiotic.
This is in the middle of the 6-day race.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So they ended up putting me on an antibiotic. I think it was like day 4, day 5. But my crew realized she's not telling us that she's
There's
in pain,
something.
but we think she's really in a bad state.
Yeah.
And so yeah, they had to start helping me because I wasn't helping myself. And I think I was so sleep deprived that I was forgetting to like eat and drink and hide, like, I was forgetting to take care of myself. Um,
Just trying to get through it. Like,
I'm trying to get through it. But like everybody else in the race, like all the other participants are sleeping, they're eating, they're drinking, they're taking care of their feet. I'm not doing anything. I'm blocking out the pain and the fatigue, and I'm not sleeping. I'm not taking care of myself.
so what are you focused on instead?
I'm hyper focused. I'm in the zone. In my mind, I'm going for world records and nothing's going to stop me. And I will push through the pain cave. There's no pain cave when I'm going for world records. So in my mind, I'm just in my headspace. And I'm trying to achieve what I had set out to do. And,
At any cost.
At any
Right?
cost.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll push myself to a near-death experience. And the sort of things that were happening during the race made me go, okay, that was way over top. Like if I was ever in a state where I'm dying or I have to find a way to survive, I will like chop my arm off or whatever, because I want to live and survive. That was what it was like. It was pushing myself to near-death experience and finding a way to survive, to keep going, to achieve what I had set out to do.
So was it you or your team that kind of noticed some of these things were concerning, or they kind of posed some questions as to, we need to look into this?
Yeah, it was my team. Like, I think it was like day 4 where they finally like pulled me in and were like, hey, Camille, the medical team wants you to take this antibiotic. They think your urinary tract infection, they were worried about me developing like kidney failure or, having internal organ issues. And yeah, I mean, ultra runners are like, we push ourselves to the extreme, but this was like pushing myself to organ failure and continuing to push through that. So it was just a really extreme, like, oh my gosh, like I'm not normal. I mean, I came away from the experience.
You're unique.
Or I'm special. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's how you frame it. But I knew like after the race with what I had experienced, the way that I hyper focused and pushed myself to the, I'm just not like anybody else. Like who could do that? Like that's just not normal. And so it wasn't until like a few weeks after that I was, we went to Oklahoma and we saw one of our friends in Oklahoma, and she was talking about how her adult daughter had gotten diagnosed with autism. And I was like, hey, Connor and I have always thought that I'm autistic. Like, where do I even start to like figure that out? And she's like, oh, well, you could take some online tests. So I started taking some online tests, and every single question I identified with, I was like, this is me. Like, holy cow. Like, it was just like, holy cow. And I took one test after another, and every single test came back that I had high traits for autism. And I said, okay, I need to see a professional to figure this out. And And so my friend had told me that it was really difficult for her daughter to see the right professional to get the help that she needed. And so I just got on Google and was like, well, I'm going to figure this out. Like, how do I find a professional that specializes in neurodivergence in adult females? And so I found a woman that's in Arizona, and we now live in Tucson. So I thought, well, that's kind of cool. She's like not far if I need to go visit her. Um, but yeah, it was in the first 5 minutes of my consultation with her that it was like she described my entire world and my entire life. And I just felt so like liberated, like, oh my gosh, this is everything.
Yeah.
Um, and I knew going into that consultation, I was like, I am definitely autistic. But I wasn't expecting to find out that I'm also, and so it made sense to me after she told me that I'm both autistic and ADHD, because being both creates kind of this contradiction internally where it's like a tug of war situation going on, where I like to go to events. I like people. I like to travel. I enjoy those things, but I have a limited social battery,
Yeah.
so I get exhausted really easily. And yeah, I mean that pretty much describes what my experience has been like as a professional athlete and a public figure. I get so excited to go to events, to like see my teammates, to like do these things, but I am like wiped out by, the end of the day. I'm like, oh man, I'm so exhausted. I don't want to be around people anymore.
Interesting, because I say I'm an extroverted introvert, but you're describing it because I love people, but like I need to recharge. Too much for me is like too much for me. And we had dinner with someone the other night who's very bright, and she said that she too took, it must have been a similar test, and she according to the test, she has Asperger's. She's like,
Yeah.
uh,
Yep.
she's in her 50s, and she's like, I thought my mom did, and so I looked into this test and I took it and I score very highly. And she's like, I had no idea. And so why is that? Why is it that women go undetected or undiagnosed for so long? I know you said that boys, right, usually are the ones that get detected. So what is it about women that masks these symptoms or causes us to not be seen in that way?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just because the research is focused on boys.
Mhm.
And so the traits are, they're looking for boys. They're looking for these specific traits. And females are, like you said, they're good at masking the traits. Females are
Mm.
expected to be social. Females are naturally more social. Uh, and I mean, you look at me, you think, oh, I'm a model. Like
Yeah.
would you expect a supermodel to, have something to
Yeah.
be autistic? Like you don't, like I did that social media post about the United agent, and she told
Yes.
me, oh, you don't look autistic. I mean, as a little girl, I was a cute little girl and I couldn't talk. I was nonverbal. I ended up making it a special interest for me to learn how to talk because I wanted to learn how to talk. I wanted to be social. I wanted to learn how to, cope with the world. So I've gone through life being able to communicate because I made that a special interest that I want to fit in. I want to fit in. I want to be able to, do normal human things.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, on a daily basis, I forget to eat and drink, to go to sleep, to use the restroom. My husband has to like keep me together because I forget what time it is. I forget about meetings. My husband has to keep a schedule. I'm dealing with all these things that people don't see. People don't understand what I'm feeling internally. And now I know why. I know why I struggle in ways that people don't see. And it's because I have a different brain.
Yeah.
And I've had this internal tug of war going on my entire life and didn't know. I thought that was normal. I've normalized what I feel inside, and didn't understand like what's happening. And now I do. Now I have like a blueprint to understand myself and to know how to cope with the autistic part of me that needs more rest and recovery, along with the ADHD part of me that needs excitement, that needs people, that needs social interaction. So
I'm blown because someone said, so I heard once someone said too, like clearly it manifests different in women too than it does in men or boys. And she said that, she goes, I often don't do the laundry because I don't want to fold it. So I'm already thinking about what needs to happen at the end. It's not about doing the laundry. I'll do the laundry, but I don't want to fold it, so I don't do it at all. And she's like, that's how it kind of ADHD manifests in women. But that's seen as like procrastination or all these other things, or we're doing too much, right? Overstimulated and getting too much in. So how does this give you, does it make you feel better almost having a diagnosis kind of as an explanation?
yeah, yeah. For me, in terms of like, I've had people ask me, well, am I too old to get a diagnosis? Like, why should I know now? Like, what's the benefit of knowing when you're over the age of 40? And I could tell you, for me, it feels like I've released a pressure valve inside of me. I finally feel like I am free to like be myself and to not feel that I have to fit in
Yeah.
to the neurotypical world. I feel like I've gone through life feeling like I have to fit into this schedule. I have to fit into the sleep. I can't be my stimmy self. I'm always a colorful, moving, happy, positive person. I mean, a 40-year-old, dancing and wearing colorful stuff. I mean, we're expected to, like, I guess, fit a certain mold or whatever.
I love that you're doing that.
So I'm going to be, I don't have to fit in anymore. It feels like so like liberating.
Yes.
Like all that pent up energy and that stress and the anxiety that I have felt my entire life, I can let go. I can release it. I can just be this like butterfly. And so I feel so liberated. It's like so exciting.
I love
I don't know how to.
I think just having answers, right? Like my addiction, right? Like I'm like, oh, that wasn't me. It was my addiction causing me these thoughts and patterns and behaviors. And now I have the choice to change them, and I can work on my mental health, and I can work on my physical health and spirituality and all of these things. Okay, now I feel better. But yeah, it's like that steam valve I've imagined of you now just being like, almost like it's okay to be me. I am who I am. Like it's okay to be me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel I'm so excited. I don't know what to yeah, I mean, and yeah, this is the first time I've talked about it, and
How does that feel to talk about it for the first time?
it feels great. It feels great. I feel like I all these like things that I've like held inside of me that now I can let go. I can just let go and I can explain my entire life and the way I think
Yeah.
and I mean I feel like I've gone through life like being misunderstood, and I'm somebody that's always blunt and very direct with people, and
Yeah.
I'm often told like, Camille, you're not supposed to say that. It's like now I'm actually being more blunt with my husband and not like feeling like I have to hold it all in
Yeah.
because like I'm just gonna be myself. I'm
Yes.
gonna just let it all out, and it just feels so good to know that I can do that, and that's because I'm autistic. I'm just gonna tell it like it
Just
is.
going to be honest and give truth bombs. I love that. So there's a woman listening that's kind of that some of this is resonating with her. What are some things either that she should maybe look out for? Like what are some identifying traits or factors for autism and or ADHD in women? And then what are some things that she can do to get some answers?
Yeah, yeah. So I found like learning what autism is. It's
Mhm.
like this whole other world for me. I found that there's a content creator called the Mom on the Spectrum. She has a really good FAQ on her webpage that
See.
kind of breaks it down of, try these tests. If you score high on these tests, and then here's some professional resources to seek out, professional diagnosis. And so I've really gotten into her content. She also has a YouTube channel that she
Okay.
kind of breaks it down, like the sort of traits. I think she has like a diagram on her webpage as well that breaks down the different traits. And so obviously being autistic, there's strengths.
Yeah.
There's so many strengths. Like I feel like I have
Yeah.
superpowers. I feel like I've gone through my life having like superpowers, but then also having this like internal struggle that I didn't understand. I didn't know how to cope with. I didn't have a blueprint. But yeah, for in terms of like the traits for me,
Mm-hmm.
I've always been able to like hyper focus and do things obsessively to the point of like perfection or professionally. And so some of my skills that I've had in life is I'm really good at music, at math, at sports.
Yeah.
I've always had the ability with running, I've run 111,000 lifetime running miles, which,
You're amazing. Amazing.
I'm like the female Forrest
You are.
Gump. Yeah, and I put on the blinders and I go out and I run every day, twice a day, and I've run like 100 miles per week for almost 18 years. So I really am like Forrest Gump.
You dissociate. Can you block everything else out and just go?
Yeah, I just block everything out and I
Wow.
hyper
Yeah.
focus. I do things repetitively. I have a routine that I do every day. But then there's the ADHD part of me that I don't run at the same time of day. It could be like any time of day because I kind of need like the entire day to like get my runs in. But I will get my runs in. I'm very regimented. I'm very routine. And I'm kind of that way with like everything. Like even when I was a kid, I mean, I didn't just read books. We had a reading contest in the first grade and I read 171 books in a month.
I thought I was an avid reader. Wow. Camille, that's impressive.
I mean, my eyes, I don't even know how I did it. I'm just like reading like, like book after book.
That's like,
Um,
I'm like trying to do the math. That's amazing.
yeah. I
So
mean, so somebody
everything is
that's
extreme, like to the extreme, to the best in everything you do.
extreme,
Yeah.
hyper
Yeah.
focus. People that are autistic may have like, I mean, I characterize it as like savant
Uh-huh.
skills, savant
Uh-huh.
talents. I have pattern recognition, so I can see and hear things, and like, I joke it's kind of like having a sixth sense about the world that I've like, I don't know how to describe it, but being autistic is like being a human antenna where you have hypo and hyposensory sensitivities where you pick up everything about the world, you pick up everything about other people. I can read people. I know things about people
You're
that
in tune.
I feel like I've held in all these like thoughts and these and that I feel about the world and about people because I don't want people to know that I have these like crazy skills.
Yeah.
Um, it's just like if you're autistic, like you're autistic and you have these like special skills, and now I can like share that with the world. I finally like understand how I have these like savant like sixth like sense. And yeah, it just makes me feel better that like
Yeah. To have, right? Because we're trying to fit, everybody's trying to fit into the normal world, right? Or into the parameters that are set before, by, like I said, culture, society, family, institution, whatever it is. And so just to have, I imagine, some sort of clarity and answer and saying, oh, okay, it's okay to be different, or it's okay, I am different, and that's okay too, just to have those answers to feel less alone or less, or like it's a superpower, like you described.
a superpower, but at the same time, I get exhausted
Yeah.
socially.
Yeah.
I get so excited when I do things and go travel and I'm around a lot of people and then I'm like exhausted by the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
But running is a way to stem, to calm the nervous system And so even if I've been having like this crazy, like hectic day of, all this like people and like hoopla or whatever, if I go for a run, it's it's such a great stress reliever that it makes me feel so much better internally with my nervous system. And so, yeah, I mean, it's kind of this, people want to understand, like, they're like, oh, you go run hundreds and hundreds of miles. Like, surely you could, handle a 1-day event. But they're two totally different things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been, I could talk to you all day. This has been such a wonderful
Yeah.
conversation. I want to know sort of one question. So you've had a incredible success and athletic success, professional success, and also some challenges, right? We talked about the bullying, the suicide thoughts, and then kind of this superpower diagnosis of autism and ADHD. If you can think of 3 ways or tips or things, so women that are going through any kind of challenge or transition in life, what are 3 tools, quotes, or things that you can think of that would help a woman that's struggling right now?
Yeah, I think a lot of it just comes down to having a support system around you. And for me, it started with my husband recognizing, okay, she's getting emotional. She's like expressing, she's not my normal, happy, positive self. And so I really got to credit my husband with recognizing, okay, I need to support her. I need to help her. But yeah, I mean, I feel like the higher that I've gone, and even like just going through life, I feel like life is this journey of learning how to, to live a healthier life. Our health and well-being. Health is wealth.
Yes, I love
basically.
This. Yeah.
Health is wealth, and so yeah, between having a support system, reaching out for help, that circle around me continues to grow as the higher that I've gone. That now I have the support of Lululemon. I have mental health professionals that I work with. I have physiologists. I have my dietitian. I have my doctors. We didn't even talk about perimenopause, because I'm on this journey with my perimenopause as well. But
I should have you back to talk about that, because I think I'm entering that phase too, and so I'm starting to explore what that looks like, and so maybe we can have a part 2.
Yeah, maybe we could do a part 2 about perimenopause. But yeah, I mean, I'm somebody, especially coming from a science background where I focus on bone health. I have a science background that I care about health and wellness because of, I was a research specialist in bone and bone imaging. And so I really care about my bone and my bone health. And, with these hormonal changes that I'm going through, I want to do what I can to protect my muscle bone health. And so, yeah, I just feel like this circle around me continues to get bigger. And I totally encourage other women to continue to grow that circle around you and reach out for help and, those resources that are going to make a difference for your health and wellness. And yeah, I mean, being 40, I feel so much more empowered now than I did in my 30s. I feel like in my 30s, I'm trying to fit in. I'm like had a full-time day job, and I'm following more of my passions. I feel like I had so many like things that I enjoyed doing as a kid that I'm like, I want to do that as an adult.
Yeah, the playfulness, like the joy. Yeah.
The joy. And yeah, I mean, discovering that I'm autistic ADHD, it's made me realize I gotta become that kid again that I was when I wasn't masking, when I wasn't trying to fit in. And so yeah, being in my 40s and, figuring this all out, I'm like, let's like bring it back. Like, let's be, that playful kid that I once was. And yeah, I mean, people see me dancing at the starting line or the finish line, and that's my 9-year-old self like coming out.
Yes, I love that. I want to dance with you in rainbow, like knee highs, like knee socks, or like, I love that because yes. And Camille, where can people find out more about you, what you're doing, what are your social handles, what do you have coming up in the next couple of months? Anything, we'd love to hear what you have going on.
Yeah, I'm a very engaging person on social media. I really like if I laugh because I'm the type of person that wants to comment to everybody, and then I realize like I can't like I have to set boundaries at some point. But yeah, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter or X, at Run Camille. I've gotten into LinkedIn as well. I'm trying to share things, from a professional perspective. But yeah, I'm very engaging. I like to help people, and people message me all the time, and I'm trying to be the consummate professional athlete,
Yeah.
and to have a platform beyond what I do athletically, because I really do care about many more things beyond, what I'm doing in sport. And yeah, and I mean, my latest thing is my autism ADHD diagnosis. And I've gotten so many wonderful messages and comments from people about that. And it feels good that I can help to break the stigma
Yeah.
and to educate and to bring mental health into the spotlight. That I feel so grateful that I'm at a point in my life and my running career where I feel good and I feel confident I'm supported to talk about mental health and what I'm doing to help improve my own mental health. So
Well, thank you so much. Your story is helping so many women. I think the more stories that we can share and kind of decreases any shame or stigma around it. So thank you for being so open and honest today. This has been such a wonderful and powerful conversation. I've enjoyed it.
yeah. Yeah, thank you, Hilary. And yeah, we'll have to do a part 2 and talk about perimenopause in the near future.
We will. All right, Camille. Bye.
Bye.